Yes, as Jacqueline mentioned, my name is Michael Mortimer, and I'm the director of both the sustainability and the global development practice master's programs here at the Harvard Extension School. And I'm excited to be here for two reasons. One, I've only started to join the Harvard community about 6 months ago, so I'm relatively new to Harvard. And this is my first coffee session with folks like you. So that's exciting. And the second reason is I'm just really glad to be able to share about the program for folks calling in from wherever they may be around the world. So that's all fantastic. So I did want to say a little bit about the programs in the next couple of slides, give you just a wee bit of background before we move on to the panelists, because I think that's the more exciting an interactive part of the session today. So I won't hold that up too long, but I did want to give you a little bit of background and maybe my own perceptions of some of these things. So as I mentioned, I've only been at Harvard for about 6 months in this position, but prior to that, I've spent maybe 15 or 17 years working with what shall we call folks like yourselves, practitioners, adult learners, working professionals, non-traditional students, whatever the term may be. I've got about 15 to 20 years of working with folks like you, creating programs for you, teaching courses for you, designing experiences for you, mentoring you. So I'm extremely excited to be part of the Harvard community and to be able to bring that experience and skill set to bear with this particular group of folks. So let me talk a little bit about what's on this slide for a moment. So this gives some highlights of the program, and I'll say a word or two about each of these. We've done some survey research with our students and with alumni, and the top reason to enroll in one of our programs is generally because you're changing careers. Now, it's one of many reasons why students select or elect to join our programs. So don't think that if you're not a career changer, you don't have a place in our programs. That would just be wrong. There's people that are career changers, they're career advancers, there's people that are doing it because they feel sustainability is incredibly important to today's world. And so it's very much a personal project of theirs. All sorts of reasons, but career changer is the top ranked reason. 74% of our students are employed full-time while they're pursuing their degree. So this kind of goes without saying. Harvard Extension School's philosophy is to provide higher education opportunities for people that are working professionals. So we're very familiar with the challenges that many of you face. Challenges like you have a career and a job, maybe you have more than one job, you've got a partner or a spouse, you may have some children, you may have some pets, you may have some elderly parents, you have all sorts of things going on in your lives, and we understand that here at Harvard. And so that's part of what we do. So again, if you're not employed right now, don't feel like you're somehow abnormal in our student population. 74% are working full time. Many folks are working part time. Many folks are transitioning jobs. And some people, frankly, just take time off to complete the degree because it's a challenging degree and sometimes that's what they require. So, just some generalities. 99% of recent graduates would recommend our program. I think that speaks for itself. It's a great program. The students are fantastic. The faculty are fantastic. You're going to get to meet some of them here in a moment. Average student age is 36. That's very typical for both of these degree programs and probably for the student population in the extension school overall. Our age range in our two programs is about, let's say, 26 to 65, something like that. So there's a space for everybody. Depends on what your experience is and your age range, but you're going to be learning from somebody that's like you and probably somebody that's different from you in the program as well. It's cross-generational, I think, is a good way to put it. And that's a valuable thing. And so the number of courses you take each term is a common question. So in our programs, you've got to complete 12 individual 4-credit classes. So 12 is the magic number. Students typically take 1 to 2 of these classes per term. So that gives you an idea about how long it takes the average student to complete their master's degree here at Harvard Extension School. Now, that's not to say you couldn't take more than 1 to 2 classes per term, but that can be a little challenging for some people that are working full-time or maybe have other obligations. If, for example, you took time off to complete the degree, then you might be able to take 3 or 4 per semester, although you'll probably hear from some of the faculty and the students that that's maybe not the wisest decision ever because many of the courses are challenging. Last thing I wanted to say is it's a very international community here at the Harvard Extension School. Just within our degree programs, we've had representation from 114 different countries. So if you're joining us today from a different country, welcome. I think that's fantastic, particularly if this time slot is not particularly an easy one for you based on your location around the world. And I wanted to give you a for example on this. Last week, I had the opportunity to join some students that were celebrating their capstone presentations on Thursday. And we went to a local restaurant, and there were about 8 or 9 of us. And at that table were students from the United States. There was a Spaniard, there was a Filipino, there was a student from Colombia who was working in the Dominican Republic, and let's see, and there were 2 from Hong Kong. So we had a very international delegation, and that's very typical of the program. So I think that's a valuable thing in sustainability and in global development practice. So as I mentioned, we have these 2 master's degree programs, and in some ways they're very similar, and in some ways they're very different. I will say at the outset that I think sustainability and global development practice are the most critical areas of study at Harvard. Now, that might just be my own biases showing, or I may be right, but it could be both of those things. They're not mutually exclusive, but they're incredibly critical areas to be studying. And if you're joining us here today, you probably already understand that. So I won't beat that with a stick. But let me say a few words about the differences between the degrees, because students often ask, what's the difference? Our sustainability degree is very much a generalist degree. It allows you to focus in any number of different areas. It's very broad. It allows you to not focus necessarily and keep your options open and pick and choose courses from a wide range of areas. It's got a lot of electives. It's just got a lot of flexibility for you to craft a program that suits your needs and your interests. So that's the strength of that program, and it's an excellent program. The Global Development Practice Program has some overlap because it's really difficult to talk about global development without talking about sustainability. So they're linked in many ways. But the Global Development Practice is a little more of a structured program. It's really designed for students that are interested in going into international development, students that want to work for a government agency, students that might want to work for a foundation or a not-for-profit somewhere in the world doing international development. And so it's really structured around getting you the interdisciplinary skills to achieve that and to be competent in doing that. And so it's got more structure to it. It's maybe got a little less flexibility, but it's also a very rigorous and excellent program. And I think many people that have gone through it have enjoyed it quite a bit. So we have, I think, uniquely an earn your way in admission process. And I know the website maybe is not completely clear about what this means. And frankly, it took me a little while to get my head around it. So essentially what Harvard is doing, Harvard Extension School has a philosophy of creating access to quality higher education for as many people as possible. And we know many of our students are non-traditional. So we're not looking for what was your undergraduate grade point average or GPA, because you may have graduated 5 years, 10 years, 30 years ago, and your GPA is really not relevant to who you are as a person or a professional right now. Likewise, we're not so much interested in standardized test scores. That's great if you have them, but they're not really dispositive of whether you get admitted to the program. So what do we do in lieu of those 2 things? Well, it's pretty simple. We ask that students take 2 required pre-admission courses before sort of matriculating formally into the program. I know this because I teach one of those 2 pre-admission courses. I'll be teaching it in the fall and in the spring, and I get about 100 students each time. And it's a way of sort of bringing you back to university, getting your skills up to speed, familiarizing you with research and writing at the graduate level, introducing some concepts about sustainability, maybe teaching you some quantitative analysis skills. It really sort of helps get your mind wrapped around what it's going to take to succeed in this program. And those 2 courses will count towards the 12 courses I mentioned. They're not 2 courses that you have to take in addition to 12 more. They count towards the 12. So they're important. They will contribute to your experience throughout your time at Harvard. And they're sort of our way of assessing whether you're going to be successful in the program, because at the end of the day, that's what we want all of you to be, as successful in the program. All right. Let me lastly say a few words about some other opportunities that are sort of related to, but slightly tangential to the master's degrees themselves. We have a series of certificates and micro certificates that allow you to really get some specific knowledge and accreditation, some credentials in particular fields. So the micro certificates are usually two separate classes, two individual classes. The certificates are usually four. And so you can see how the math works with the stackable certificates and micro certificates. You can combine two micros into a certificate sometimes, but we won't get into those details right now. An example of the micro certificates would be a brand new one that we're offering this fall in greenhouse gas emission, basically greenhouse gas emission calculations and tracking inventory. And so that one was going to be coming out. One course is offered in the fall, one course is offered in the spring, and you're able to complete the micro certificate in 2 semesters. An example of a certificate would be something like a new climate change certificate that we are in the process of designing and developing right now, that's going to have a lot of electives and opportunities for you to focus in different areas. It has some core courses associated with it, and we think it's going to be very exciting for everyone. So that's in the process of development. Last thing I would say is that the community, not only among the students in our degree programs, but also the community in the extension school, and even more broadly across Harvard, is fantastic. It's something that's really struck me. One of the things that struck me the most about joining the community here in January is how much camaraderie, how much support, how much of a network exists among all of the folks that you're going to encounter. And that can include everything from academic advising and career services, the Harvard Innovation Lab, where we have students working on everything from a new journal of sustainability to working on their innovation capstone and designing new products that might help solve some of our technological issues. You've got access to all the Harvard University services. You might be able to work for somebody doing some paid research. And we have a robust pair of sustainability clubs on campus that are very active and that they do wonderful things with students and involve faculty as they can. So it's a robust environment. It's a lot of collegial activity among the students and faculty, and I'm very pleased and proud to be part of it. So I think that's the end of my time, and I will throw it back to Jacqueline. Thank you all for giving me a chance to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I'm really glad you underscored how important community is for the Harvard Extension School, especially for our sustainability and GDP students. I think that example you shared is one that we hear time and time again, just about how global our community is, how they stretch to all different parts of the globe, and they come here to share ideas, share experiences, and move the needle forward on this important work. So thank you so much for that presentation, Michael. It is now my pleasure to introduce the rest of our panelists who will join us for our coffee chat. So up first is Carol. Carol, if you could join us and tell us a bit more about yourself. I know you're joining us for the first time this fall, so we'd love to hear a bit more about your background.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited about this new semester and spending time at the Harvard Extension School. So my name is Carol Franco. I am originally from the Dominican Republic, and I am currently the advisor for nature-based solutions for the Ministry of Environment in Dominican Republic. I am here in Virginia at Virginia Tech. Some of my background, my PhD was in ecological economics and natural resources, environmental policy. I've been working on climate change for the past 20 years, and I've been part of the government of Dominican Republic, as well as I've been academia and NGOs in different times of my life. I've been part of the climate change negotiations since 2012, attending the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and representing my country, Dominican Republic, first negotiating REDD+, reduction of emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, and now agriculture adaptation in the agriculture sector. I was part of the IPCC report, AR6, as a review editor of Chapter 2 and Working Group 2 on adaptation and vulnerability. And also belong to different NGOs in the boards, trying to make sure that I am part of that movement on climate change in Latin America and the Caribbean. Again, any questions, I'm very happy to be here and to answer any questions you may have, and really excited to be part of this.
Thank you so much, Carol. And I think I can speak for everyone here. We're so grateful and happy to have you and your expertise join us at the Extension School. So thank you so much. Next up is Alexander. Alex, if you could tell us a bit more about yourself and what it's been like to be an Extension School instructor these past few years.
Yeah, thank you, Jacqueline. And I know my boss is here, so the only answer is the right answer, and it is the truthful answer. It's been great. It truly is the highlight of my week each time I log in and teach. My background, I originally from Finland, and I've done everything and anything possible when it comes to global development, researched it, worked it. Almost on all continents, I've done something for the UN. I've spent more than a decade there with everyone who has a hyphen Secretary General. I've done something for them, from speechwriting to running grants and programs for them. And you ask how it's been. I said this is a dream come true, quite frankly, to be here. Michael already alluded to it, and I know we might get into the weeds of it in our Q&A. But there's no place like this. You know, I was looking for what is the best place for myself, the best community, the most rigorous community in global development to integrate into. And this is it. There's nothing else out there that actually offers this level of in-depth inquiry and intellectual curiosity to be satiated. And as you'll see, the faculty is just amazing. The students are, the best part of for me in teaching this. And hopefully we'll see many of you come this fall.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alex. And last but not least, Marina, could you tell us a bit more about yourself? And before we get into that, I want to say congratulations on your recent graduation. Marina just completed her degree recently, so a big shout out to Marina. But if you could tell us a bit more about yourself and maybe your favorite memory at Harvard Extension School.
Hey, Jacqueline, thank you for having me here today. I'm Marina Strano. I live in Portland, Oregon now, but I'm originally from Brazil. I have 15 years of experience in the technology industry, the last 10 at Intel. I have completed 2 certificates at Harvard, the corporate innovation and also the international development certificates. My favorite memory at Harvard was the possibility for me to choose my own client during my consulting capstone. I had the freedom and the pleasure to work with a Spanish restaurant, and I'm so glad with all the work that I could do, and also to add all this experience to my portfolio so I can successfully change and pivot my career. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm definitely going to follow up with you. So I'd love to hear more about your capstone in a little bit. But thank you all so much. And a reminder to everyone watching today to put your questions for the panel in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So before we jump in, if everyone could just raise your mug up to the screen. It's a little hard to see, but if you can kind of see it, that will be our coffee mug initiation. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. All right, so the first question for our panel will be for Michael. And this is a question I've actually seen come in both in the pre-submitted questions and a few coming in today. How do these 2 programs evolve to stay current with the rapidly evolving career market? And I guess also global needs.
I think that question is the winner. That's the best question of the day, regardless of whatever question comes in, because I don't mean to insult anyone else's question, but that is almost one of the most important things. So when we think about sustainability and we think about global development practice, we're facing incredibly rapidly changing everything, from climate change to geopolitical systems to the lack of superpowers, to rising superpowers, to responsibility for government. I mean, everything is changing immensely. Demographics are changing around the world. The rise of Africa, Asia, everything is in flux, and it's moving faster and faster and faster. And so we really, as part of my role is to keep up with some of those changes and to make sure that we have courses and faculty that are cutting edge and that reflect those changes. And I've had conversations both with Alex and Carol about some of those very things. So that's a timely question. But we do a number of things. We stay in touch with practitioners that are out in the field, meeting these challenges daily. We talk to our stakeholders and partners. We have advisory boards staffed with experts, many of whom are practitioners that we try to stay in touch with. And then we even have an AI-powered system that maps job descriptions onto our course content. That's how seriously we take that. So if we get a good score, it means we're doing well. And if we don't get a good score, it means we better get some new coursework in play. So I take it serious as a heart attack to keep our courses current and topical and in a position where they can best serve our students' needs. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael. And I didn't even know about the AI software that's looking at job descriptions versus what we're teaching in our classes. So, you know, you're ahead of even my current knowledge of what's going on. So thank you so much. And kind of in that same vein, Carol, I know you're joining us for your first semester in the fall. Could you tell us a little bit about the courses you're teaching and why you're excited to join us?
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Yes, I am very excited to join. I'm going to be teaching Principles and Practice of Climate Change Negotiations. And before I dive into that course, I'm very excited because I'm looking forward to meet the class. I'm looking forward to see how my expertise can help, can support them. How can I provide any advice on moving forward? I have worked a lot on climate change at the national, international level, regional level, and see how everything I know, everything I do can help them figure out where's their niche, where can they be. And my class is going to be this semester, my class is going to be on teaching about negotiations, teaching about climate change negotiations. So looking at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change as the international treaty created in 1992, basically to jointly limit the increase in global average temperatures. But how that happened, how can we put all these countries together, 196 parties together to make those decisions, to develop this global policy? And what happens really within it, and how difficult it is to make negotiations. So looking at science diplomacy, and this is on climate change negotiations, but it works in any type of negotiations you want. You can use the same principle, the same skills, and at the same time, give them a little taste of what is going into a negotiations. So some of it and some part of it would be that the possibility that I'm working with the boss, with Michael, to see if we can bring some students to the negotiations this year, which are going to be in Baku, Azerbaijan. So we're looking at that perspective, and I'm very excited if we can make it happen and have some students come with us and see firsthand and experience firsthand what is global development policy, climate change policy happening. How can you talk to the different countries here? What are their interests? So my class is going to focus a lot on that, but also what are the main topics that are of interest for us as a region in the Americas, but also as individual countries in certain areas, coastal areas, small island development states, and see how we can have our own inputs. So not everybody goes to the negotiations, but what can we do on the ground to support those negotiations, to support those decisions happening? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And it seems like this is a class that's teaching critically important skills. So thank you for that, Carol. And I'm sure that a few of you watching today might be taking a class with Carol in the fall. Alex, I was wondering if you two could tell us a bit about the courses you're taking and how you try to stay on the cutting edge of information that students need to know to be successful after graduation or to make a difference in their career field.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'll share a secret that everyone who's taken a class with me knows. And I labor the point. I've been in university level education since the year 2007 without one single break. I have a plan for 3 Finnish style PhDs. So these are not the American or UK style where you slave away at a cubicle somewhere for 7 years. They're called continued studies. And I really try to live up to lifelong learning as something I do instead of just something I live here as an instructor. So that's one way. And I would encourage everyone to truly take that seriously. And I think I'm preaching to the choir, given that you're here during your lunch break talking about potentially joining us. So you're joining a right group if that's what you're interested in. So I still work in practice. So this is the side gig, so to say. So that's one way of keeping all my other 9 fingers on the pulse. I worked a bit for Boston Consulting Group, which was an interesting secondment type experience where I learned how the private sector does some of this thing that works on the other side of the aisle. And I write. I have a textbook that's upcoming, which I'll use some of my students as guinea pigs to figure out what the best content is, and the textbook will cover much of the topics of the two classes that you asked. So I have E102 and EU14, the global development theory and practice and management in the context of global development. So these are natural extensions of myself, my expertise, where we'll essentially first do a little bit of rigorous intro to the theory and practice. So we spend almost half and half talking about, all right, what to even expect when we talk about global development, what's happened over the past 300-400 years. We actually go all the way as back as the ancient Greeks. So we talk about Plato and his theories of change in history, and we go all the way to 2024 and think about, okay, so now post-capitalist world, we go through all the critique. And my secret sauce there is to put the ball on each of the students. So kind of the second part, how do I ensure that everyone who takes these classes actually joins us in this experience of learning instead of just listening to what their professor or instructor says? I put it on them. One of the big asks from first class is you're responsible for figuring out your theory of development. This is not done. Like Michael said, this is one of the easiest, most bankable careers you can have. Global development sustainability is going nowhere. There's always going to be work and thinking that needs to get done in this area. So the sooner you adopt this approach, where you're constantly on your toes a bit, pivoting to whatever evidence is showing to be right, and just molding your views and your theory, the better outcome you'll have. And as I said, would love to see all of you in our courses this fall.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. And I love what you said, stay on your toes, and that will keep, that knowledge and that curiosity going. And I think, Carol and Alex, you both have shown the breadth of expertise that we offer at Harvard Extension School. A statistic that I always like to throw out is that 70% of our Harvard Extension School faculty members have PhDs, and the other 30% are equally as accomplished in their fields as practitioners, people who are working in industry. So no matter who you take a course with, you are bound to have someone who's on the cutting edge, cares passionately about their students, and will teach you the important skills you need for after your degree. So thank you so much. And Marina, I know we just heard all about our amazing faculty, but in addition to that, I wanted to know what your thought process was when you were choosing your particular degree to pursue at Harvard Extension School, and why Harvard Extension School itself.
Of course. So I was working at technology industry, as I mentioned, and I spent so many hours of my life working professionally with like software and technology that I really wanted to make a real difference for my children. So I decided to pursue sustainability, and my husband had already started software engineer master's here at Harvard Extension School. So I knew from him that there were other programs, and then I started digging out all the classes, and I was super glad to see how flexible the program was, and that I had the opportunity and freedom to choose the classes that interested me and would fit my particular background, because I'm the only person that knew what I needed to know to move forward in my career.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think flexibility is one of our key components of the Extension School. Is we know that most of our students are balancing family responsibilities, work, volunteering, things along those lines. So having classes, having support to help fit academics into our student lives is really important to us. So kind of along that same vein, Michael, I have a question for you, and you touched on it a bit before, but what are some of the additional benefits or resources to help our students who are balancing multiple different things successfully complete their degree at the Extension School? So maybe our academic advising, our library resources, some out of the classroom resources that they have access to.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of those are the usual types of things, like library resources, academic advising, career counseling, career services. Those types of things are all available, and they're valuable and they're good. And I think it's a definite benefit of being in the Extension School. I would say, however, that the most important thing that I would gauge, or the most powerful thing I would gauge, would be the peer-to-peer network that you establish while you're in the extension school. I mean, the students really become comrades and really work together closely, and the clubs play a huge role in that. Social events play a role in that. It's a hybrid virtual program, but when students do come to campus, which is, by the way, required, you either come for the summer or you come for a weekend in the spring or fall, one of those two. Then you get to meet people in person, and it's extremely powerful to be able to interact with your peers and hopefully with your faculty in those settings as well. So I think it's the best of both worlds, flexible to attend, but also those peer-to-peer engagements that we can offer.
Perfect. And Marina, could you talk a little bit about networking? So Michael, I know you talked about that a bit, but most of our degrees, you can complete the majority of the classes online. How are you able to connect with your instructors, other students while distance learning?
Yeah, so most of my courses I completed remotely, but the classes are very dynamic, allow for a lot of discussions that brings us together, the instructors and our colleagues. And also we have always WhatsApp groups that we discuss sustainability topics. We can work on our projects together. So that's another part that brings us together. Many classes have group projects. So even for introverts like me, it really makes us talk with other people and bring us close together. And then when I went to Harvard for my consulting capstone, we had a wonderful weekend there that I could really get close together with my cohort. So all those opportunities help to create this community and place where I feel that I belong.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I know Alex's video is being a little funky right now, but I'll direct this question to you, Alex. Kind of along the same vein, how do you foster and create an online community that's engaging to students and kind of helps them communicate and connect outside of class?
Thank you. So coming here from the spirit world, no idea what happened with the camera, but it's only right that I look like a spectre, given that we had some spectrum issues earlier this morning. So on that topic, there's really I have a secret weapon, which is my TA. So if any of you know or will work with Kate Uchi, she it's just the team that makes this work. We have a wonderful, absolutely delightful group of individuals on the faculty side, and that you already heard from Marina on the club side of just peers, and this is so supportive. There's some classes, some departments at Harvard might be a bit more cutthroat, competitive, where you're guarding your chances at an A versus collaborating. There's none of that here. Everyone's on a shared path of learning, and I have it easy compared to some of the other classes I've taught in life, where engagement just happens naturally. And then we do lean in on the async nature. So we take Canvas, if you've ever used the software, and if you haven't, don't worry, it's very intuitive. We have discussions. We have just click in lobbies where you can add a random date or time selected with a couple of colleagues, opt in to have a chat with perhaps me or the TA off topic on anything. We're at email, we Zoom. I've met, I think, 3 or 5 of my students this summer here in New York. People fly in, we have a chat, we do our office hours whenever you need it. So I saw in some of the questions, you're perhaps considering, is this something you can do at a distance? Absolutely. But as Michael said, it's still pretty rigorous. So that's what I would recommend, that you do take into consideration that, this is not one of those Coursera type classes where you click an answer and you get a multiple choice. So we start off by asking you to prepare your own theory development in my class. And if that's not intellectual engagement, I don't know what is. We just build from there. And it truly scales with your effort. The more you want out of us and the class and your classmates, the more you get out of it. So that's how we try to enable you to have the journey that fits best. And knowing that some of you are doing maybe 2-3 jobs at the same time, if you can do a bit less this semester and more the next, that works fine for us as well. So don't feel like you need to be on 24/7. But if that's the type of camaraderie you're searching for, I can promise you that you'll find the opportunity to be very fully engrossed in the class activities and beyond.
Perfect. Thank you. And that's a lesson I think I've heard time and time again from different instructors and staff members here at Harvard Extension School. What you put in is what you get out. So just to keep that tidbit in mind. And I think one thing that always amazes me about the HES community is how willing people are to continue in that community, giving back to that community, connecting even after graduation. So we've heard a couple stories of people who come together through an online class and start a startup together. Or someone, I think last summer, was in someone else's wedding. So there's all different connections that come out of this. And whether you're taking a class in person or online, you will definitely be able to find those important integral networking connections, but personal connections as well. So thank you all for answering that question. And I definitely want to ask this, and you piqued my interest a little bit, Marina, when you're telling us about yourself at the beginning. I'd love to hear first from Michael and then from you, Marina, about our Capstone project and kind of what that entails for our students. And then I'd love to hear your experience, Marina.
So I'll give you the high level, and then Marina can give you the actual experience. So we have a number of different capstone formats. I'll back up a step. You can go capstone or thesis in our programs, and the capstone formats vary. We have a consulting capstone where you do a consultation with a real world client. We have an independent research capstone, which is what it sounds like. We have a brand new innovation capstone where you work with some entrepreneurs and come up with some plans for an organization or for your own ideas. And we have coming online next year, the year following, is going to be a case study capstone. And so these are all different formats that you can pursue. They have different faculty, they have different attributes, but they're all pushing you towards creating a really high quality professional product.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Marina, could you tell us a bit more about what you did your topic on, how that experience went for you, and how the other courses leading up to your capstone prepared you to successfully dive into a topic of interest?
So I started the program with a very broad idea of what sustainability was. And it was towards like completing the classes that I started gaining more knowledge and finding out what I really was passionate about. So I did a class on circular economy that really like opened my eyes to several possibilities. And the instructor of that class actually helped me find my client. So I chose the consulting Capstone to conclude my program. And one of his guest speakers was this Spanish restaurant, 3-star Michelin from Spain, called Azurmendi. And I was really passionate about like all the sustainability initiatives that they had already implemented. And I really wanted to work with them. So I asked the instructor, can I please meet with them and see if I can work with them? So he made a connection that was great for me, so I could leverage the network on the program to find my client. I was a little worried if I would be able to find a client or not. And to work with a real project was really important for me because I was changing my career, I was changing industries. So having a real life project to show for with real experience was really, really important. Looking forward to my next role. So the topic of the restaurant was like, what next steps they could take in their sustainability journey, how they could broaden their cooperative relationship with other restaurants to move forward, what initiative they had already made for themselves, and how they could expand that to other restaurants so they could really make a bigger impact in the food industry.
Perfect. And I love,
yeah. No, in a nutshell, that's it.
Oh, perfect. I love to hear that even before you graduated, you were having real world impact on this business, on this industry. So that's fantastic to hear. And while I have you, Marina, kind of expanding on this a bit, I know that with the capstone, as you just mentioned, you were able to work with this client, but how has your degree at the Extension School had an impact on your career, on your life? I know you recently just graduated, so I'm sure that all of the great things are still to come, but walking away from your degree, being part of the alumni network now, how do you think it's had an impact on your personal and academic goals?
When I first started the program, I was working full time. And towards the middle of it, like 1 year after, I decided to quit my job and fully focus on the program. So the second year I took as a full-time student. I also started as a teaching assistant for the circular economy class and the regenerative economy class. And I also leveraged my network as I'm now a sustainability advisor for a startup that's in the final steps of the Terra Carta Design Lab competition. and this came from a student from one of these classes that I'm a TA on. So I think this graduate degree gave me the possibility of really changing my career, and I'm looking forward to my next role as an innovator and a researcher in the circular economy space.
Perfect. And we're excited to follow along on your journey and to see all the amazing things you're going to do. So thank you so much, Marina. And before our last question, I wanted to kind of actually throw it back way to the beginning. We just talked about capstones, about our alumni community, about all the great things Marina is going to do in the future. But Carol, I was wondering, since many of our students are going to be returning to school after potentially a few years, a few decades, what's some advice you would give to our students who are returning back to school for the first time?
Thanks, Jacqueline. I would say it's just a matter of engaging again. I know it might be a bit difficult. It's you going back to school after a while, but it's a lot of, after you're a practitioner, after you're out there, you know, a lot of the work is done in teams. You can never do it. Many times you cannot do it alone. So you have to go back to that and engage into it. Maybe a little bit harder at the beginning, but then you get really in, you really create that atmosphere of, okay, let's work together, let's make it happen. And I think after I tell that to all my students, after you go out, you work, it's even much easier to come back and try to figure things out and come back to classes because you have all this experience. And it's a two-way street. It's not just you learning from me, it's me learning from you too. So we're all learning from each other. What is your experience? What was your knowledge that you gained when you were out there that you can bring back to us, and we can use that for ourselves and for making the class even much better. So that one thing I would say is always remember that you have a lot to add. You have a lot of inputs to bring to these classes. And I'm really eager to hear from those students and everybody else also. So it's a matter of feel free to make comments, come back, tell us what's your experience. How do you see what you did and everything you gained working outside of the academic life, how what I'm saying connects, how everything you did could be connected to what you were doing, and how could you add to that with your experience and knowledge acquired.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carol. And I really want to underscore again that from the beginning of your journey all the way through the end, you're supported here. You're not alone on this journey. We know that adding academics back into your life is a big decision for a lot of people, and we want to make sure you're successful. We want to make sure that you go out into the world and you carry all of the pragmatic lessons that you've learned and the networking connections you have to make some impact. So thank you, everyone. And so for our last question, to end it on kind of a note where we're tying everything together, I'd like to ask each of you, why should someone join our sustainability and global development practice community? So I'll first start off with Alex. If you could tell us briefly why someone should join us.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously, many of you come here for many different motivations, but I'd say you'll regret it if you don't. If you at all, if I'm psychoanalyzing all of you in the audience correctly, you are perennially interested, intellectually curious, and the questions I'm seeing seem more like technicalities than about whether this is something that you find fulfilling. So if it's not this time around, there's always a next semester. And we'll have these coffee chats in the future. And I said, I think this is, and if you're thinking about it, and if you can't shake off the feeling after a couple of weeks, it might be a sign that it's meant to be. That's my take on it.
Perfect. And Marina, if you could tell us why someone should join us.
The classes are great. Discussions are awesome, and I feel great with all the people that I get to know during the process. So.
Perfect. And Carol?
So I'm a new instructor, as you know, but everything I have seen so far will let me to believe that it's an amazing program and that there are nothing to lose. On the contrary, there's a lot to gain, and it will really prepare you for the next step in your life. And like Alex said, you will not regret it for sure.
Perfect. And last but not least, Michael, why should someone join our sustainability and global development practice community?
So I'll answer this in a strange way. If you know me, that wouldn't be that unexpected. I've had the chance to meet a number of alumni, recent alumni, and some folks who are getting to graduate recently that are getting ready. They're at the end of their programs, and I would have to say there is a profound sadness among these people at the thought of having to leave the program. They've had such an enjoyable experience. They've the intellectual energy and mojo that they've been able to participate in has really revitalized them in many ways. And some of them are really, they're borderline despondent. They don't know what they're going to do with their lives next and how they're going to find a replacement for what the extension school offers them. So that sounded weirdly negative, but it's actually a super great positive. So that's my answer, I guess.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, many different reasons why you should join us this fall or in a future semester. But thank you to our whole panel and Marina. Yes.
I just have one last comment. One thing that made it easy for me was to start with a certificate because I didn't have to commit to an entire degree upfront. So that made my life much easier. And then I could really attest to the quality of the classes and all the things.
Yeah, that's a great point. As Michael mentioned, we have micro certificates, and then our degree, and they're a great way to test the waters, to gain some professional credentials, and continue on our lifelong learning journey here at the Extension School. So that was a great last point. Thank you so much, Marina. But to everyone on the panel, thank you for sharing your insight, and to all of you who asked your thoughtful questions, we really appreciate you being here today. If we weren't able to get to your question or more arise before you join us, please contact us at inquiry@extension.harvard.edu or call us at 617-495-4024. Make sure to also follow us on our social media to stay updated on deadlines, hear student stories like Marina, and to learn more about our offerings. We also want to remind you of a few important dates and deadlines. So July 22nd, that's coming up soon. That is when courses will open at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. August 19th is the full payment deadline. The 29th is when the course registration closes. So definitely make sure to get into your classes, maybe with Carol or Alex. And then the fall term will start on September 3rd. If you'd like to learn more about kind of how to balance academics with other work like we discussed today, we will be having a webinar on August 6th called Setting Yourself Up for Success at Harvard Extension School with a few members of our community. We'll talk about how to balance academics with work life, get some insider tips on how to have a great first semester, things along those lines. And lastly, just a reminder that today was recorded and we will send you an email with it in a few days. The recording will also be available on our YouTube channel and on our event registration page. So with that, we want to thank you all so much for taking the time to learn more about our community today. We really appreciate you being here and learning more about these programs, and we hope to see you in a class with us this fall.